Kia ora tō namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Case. This is our big old podcast coming at you on a Tuesday, and we are here to discuss, digest, and debrief a whole lot of Aotearoa sporting matters. That's all we do, and it's what we love to do. So shout out to everyone here with us on YouTube and on the podcast platforms. We solely focus on New Zealand sport. And if it's all about the New Zealand angle, the New Zealand bias, chucking the New Zealand goggles on. So when I see South Africa win the World Test Championship, first and foremost, I big them up because it continues the streak. Now, obviously, we don't need to remind folks that New Zealand won the first World Test Championship, but it continues the streak of England and India not winning the World Test Championship. But aside from reminding folks that New Zealand did win the first ever World Test Championship, which is the greatest cricket trophy one can win, and it is the greatest cricketing format there's ever been, the greatest cricketing tournament that has ever existed. And obviously, shout out to Daniel Vettori, Kiwi, who's working with the Australians, but he had a loss, so shout out to him. I think back to when South Africa toured New Zealand early in this World Test Championship cycle. If you don't remember, that was February 2024, and that was meant to be the death of Test cricket, the latest death that Test cricket has died. South Africa, they were complicit in the death of Test cricket because they sent their B team to New Zealand. I mean, Jah forbid that anyone sends a second 11 Test team to any nation. It's the worst thing that could ever happen to a Test cricket nation. Well, you know what happened since then? South Africa won the World Test Championship. And throughout that World Test Championship final, I kept thinking, how awesome is Test cricket? So we have, well, there's this other idea. You can go Google it. I won't waste your time here. But Test cricket's been dying since at least the 1800s. If you go looking through the newspaper archives, you will find the death of Test cricket going back hundreds of years, maybe just 100 years. But Test cricket's been dying for a long time, and it's still here. And to be honest, it's the best it's ever been. And I thought all of that as I was watching that World Test Championship final because it was a fantastic arena. It's a fantastic test match. But we need that New Zealand angle. And my New Zealand angle is how South Africa came to New Zealand with a second-tier team that sparked up a whole lot of not rare introspection about Test cricket because England, Indians, they're always saying Test cricket's dying. Even the Aussies love to say Test cricket's dying. And in that moment, apparently Test cricket was dead. And after New Zealand won that Test series 2-0, which I think it did feature David Bedingham. He was the leading run scorer for South Africa. And he played in that World Test Championship final. Since then, South Africa went on to win the World Test Championship final. So big up to them and big up to the Blackcaps for the role that they played in the greatest cricketing competition there is. Whether that's winning the first World Test Championship or playing their role in helping South Africa win their first World Test Championship as well.
And yeah, there are some parallels there between New Zealand and South Africa because, you know, we were the team that always came close but never actually won anything, and then won the Test Championship in that first cycle, and that meant the baton got passed along to South Africa as the next team up there who, you know, always competitive but never wins anything. Now they've won something too. So the Test Championship is doing its goods. And meanwhile, like a couple of weeks ago, you know, just the the angle that often gets taken is the reason why Test cricket might be dying is because T20 leagues everywhere. It was a couple of weeks ago, Virat Kohli finally won his first IPL, and then they ask him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, it's great. I've been working a long time to do this, but Test cricket is the pinnacle." Like, which was a really pointed thing for him to say in that moment, which other people were trying to present as like the peak of his career. He'd finally got to the top of the mountain in the IPL, and he's like, "Yeah, but Test cricket, like unprompted, just yeah, Test cricket though. Don't forget about Test cricket." So that's one thing that's always been consistent through that is that the players themselves, whether they're Indian or English or New Zealand or South African or whatever, they always hype up the Test cricket stuff. There's an interview with Kane Williamson doing the same thing very recently on Cricinfo. Like they, the players always say like this is the peak. I don't know where this thing gets lost in communication somewhere to where other people decide to impose this other idea that Test cricket is struggling, but it's kind of not. I don't actually think it is. I think maybe this is just one of those things where when people say it often enough, they start to believe it. Whereas maybe there's actually enough evidence to the contrary to say it's not struggling. It's actually awesome.
Well, there's a recent Test Match Special, the BBC podcast.
Yeah, one of the stirrers of the pot,
the main
despite the
stirrer
name
of the pot. They did their World Test Championship debrief. The next podcast is titled, "Is Test Cricket Thriving or Simply Surviving?" We know the answer to that. Test cricket is thriving. And to your point about the T20 stuff, I have been watching a little bit of Major League Cricket. And like, this is like, so you got all these, you got the Indian team owners who own multiple teams, and they're meant to be leading this revolution of T20 cricket. You got guys like Trent Boult, they're just playing T20 cricket around the world. I watched the New York Mumbaians play, and Kieron Pollard was batting. He drops the ball into the leg side. Daryl Mitchell's bowling, old Dazza. Pollard jogs halfway down the pitch, taking a single, then starts to walk, and old Dazza, pure Kiwi mana, chases the ball hard, perfect slide, get up, throw, hits the stumps. Pollard is walking, and he's 3 meters out of his crease. I'm like, okay, that's a bit lazy. That's like you're kind of taking the piss there, but off whatever. You're playing T20 cricket, so you're playing T20 cricket in America, so I forgive you for taking the piss a wee bit. And then I'm watching yesterday, and old Danny Morrison, he's very tapped in. I think Danny Morrison's the biggest winner of T20 cricket exploding around the world because he just has a constant
up there
job.
for sure.
And he's saying, "Oh, Pollard and Pooran, this is what they do. This is what they do at the end of the games. They love to slow it down, take their time." And so Pooran, they're doing this over and over again to stop, have a chat, get hit for 6. We're going to make another plan, get hit for 6 again. Okay, we're going to need another plan. The ball goes straight to Pooran, who is the captain, and he misfields it, and it goes for 4. Then Pollard is bowling the final over, and they need like 3 runs to win or something. First delivery, he doesn't let go of the ball. Danny Morrison, great plan. This is what they do. They love to break the game down, build up the nerves and all this stuff. Then he gets hit for 6, game over. And I'm watching that, and I'm like, oh, Mr. Boult, this is what you want to do? You just want to play in it's kind of a gimmick. Like there's a few leagues where T20 cricket is played to the tippy top seriousness. Credit to the IPL, it's one of those leagues. Credit to the Super Smash, it is one of those leagues. It is the premier T20 league in the world. But I'm watching Major League Cricket, and I'm like, this is supposed to be one of the reasons why cricket, one-day cricket, test cricket is in danger? Because we're playing a cricket circus? Like, this is barely even serious cricket. And so I had kind of two ideas from that, because I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's this other thing in America called banana ball. Do you know
I haven't
anything?
seen this. No, I don't know anything about this.
You definitely need to have a little look on the YouTubes of banana ball. I'd suggest just watching a couple of shorts. You watch a couple of shorts, you'll get the gist of banana ball. Banana ball, when I click through the little description on the telly TV cable provider here in New Zealand, it's Broadway meets cricket. Broadway meets baseball. Sorry, baseball. Broadway meets baseball. So what they're basically doing is a exhibition style of baseball, which is all performative. So they're doing dances, they're doing trick plays. When the umpire wants to call a strike, he might do a backflip. It's all very kind of designed for youngsters, you know. It's just like, let's have a bit of fun. It's completely ridiculous, but it is perfectly aligned with the description of Broadway meets baseball. There are more people watching banana ball in the stadium than Major League Cricket. I was like, and if anyone listening, if you go watch banana ball, you'll be like, this is crazy. This is some crazy shit happening here. But it does look like a fun time. It's very performative. It's very outlandish and outgoing. And if you're interested in the status of Major League Cricket, not only did I watch two key leaders of the New York Mumbaians, two leaders of the T20 franchise circuit, absolutely taking the piss. Not only that, but there's more people watching banana ball in the stadium than anything Major League Cricket. What do you reckon about banana ball?
Uh, I'm just stuck on the idea that they're called the New York Mumbaians as well, which I'm looking up the thing and it's
No, that's just me. That's just me.
okay. But it's like they're called MI New York, which I guess is Mumbai Indians New York,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. So that's one of those. That's still like that's
That's why I
dumb.
said, like, you
That's
got like
it's a weird name.
Bolt, Pollard, Pura, and they're part of the
Yeah.
Mumbai family. And again,
Right.
I say to Trent Bolt,
Big happy family.
I say to Trent Bolt, if you would rather play whatever the fuck this T20 shit is, cool, good for you. But it seems it's like the former Otago coach Ash Nofke taking a job with Pakistan. If you feel like that is the best job to be a Pakistan cricket coach, good for you. But I don't really give a shit. And I do not give a shit about anyone chasing the T20 circuit, because I just don't think it's that good. But I mean, have you seen any banana ball? Why were you worried about the Mumbai
Yeah,
Indians?
I just did a check on that. And I watched one clip where the dude's standing there ready to pitch, and then they're all doing a coordinated dance. And then they keep doing coordinated dance, and the guy's standing there waiting for them to throw the ball. And I'm still just throw the ball. What are you what are we doing here? But then the guy like slugs a fly ball out to the like left field, and the guy catches it while doing a backflip. So that was actually pretty cool.
There you go.
I'll give him credit for that. The catch was awesome. The little dance before throwing the ball. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know who this appeals to. Like, I get the idea of trying to speed up baseball, but like, you've also ruined baseball by doing this. And I could just go watch a Broadway show if I wanted to see the coordinated stuff. Like, it's like, why do you need to combine two things when you've got two separate things that are good on their own? You know, well, we know the answer to that. It's because
Yeah, well,
Americans are restless, but yeah.
you seem surprised. Um, my so then so like I've like Okay, so I'm kind of thinking Major League Cricket, it's a bit of a gimmick. I'm thinking Banana Ball, at least they know they're a gimmick.
Yeah.
The Club World Cup, I don't know what it is. To me, and this is, I think, like, I don't, Major League Cricket, credit to the American cricketers, the USA-based cricketers. That's their Big Donny T20 competition. So I don't want to say Major League Cricket is a gimmick, but it was very exhibition vibes. Like, we're playing friendlies here. That's more of what we're talking about with the Club World Cup. For those who don't know, Auckland City, they're representing Oceania, and they're playing against the Big Donny football teams of the world, who, I mean, I've been following the Club World Cup for at least a decade because New Zealand's usually had a team. So it's always kind of interesting. So my familiarity, that's right, with the Club World,
Familiarity.
yeah, with the Club World
That
Cup
one.
goes back a wee way, and I'm so familiar with it. I'm like, wait, why does the football world actually care about this? These are exhibitions. These are friendlies. These are not serious footballing activities. This is FIFA just creating a competition because they can. And this is a serious question to you, because it does seem like there is interest in the Club World Cup in the footballing community around the world. Why do football fans seem to care about the Club World Cup?
Well, I mean, I find the concept of it really interesting. And I think the idea of having a tournament where you take the best teams from the different continents and have them play against each other, like you don't see that in any other thing. If you do, it's because it's an actual friendly where everyone is really either like legitimately taking the piss, or it's preseason, so you're just rolling heaps of subs and not playing your best players the whole time. Here is at least the pretense of it being a serious tournament. I think that's a pretty cool idea. I like that concept of being able to see, even if it does lead to like big mismatches, you're still seeing the best team in Oceania playing against one of the best teams in the world slash Europe, in Auckland City versus Bayern Munich. Like that's interesting. I don't know why anyone freaks out about there being a big scoreline. Like, what else did you possibly expect? And you don't need it to be like, who wants every game to be a 1-0? Like, it's just let it be what it is. It's like the banana ball thing. At least it's an honest reflection of where those two teams stand against each other. But Auckland City qualified legitimately for that tournament, and they deserve that opportunity. And it's a sort of like once in a lifetime opportunity for those players to get to play against World Cup winners and whatnot, Champions League winners and all this. I think that's quite a cool concept. But of course, FIFA's got their fingerprints all over it. So instead of treating it as a serious competition and being like, let's put it, I don't know, let's do what the World Test Championship did. Like, we'll give the final will be played at Wembley, and we'll host it in, like, you know, with in countries where, or in any country where it's a bit more like it will be treated the way that we want it to be treated. But of course, instead they just like, let's go and put it in America, and we'll change the rules at the last minute to make sure, no matter what else happens, to make sure that Lionel Messi's team qualifies. And then let's have 32 teams straight off the bat instead of maybe like four groups of four. 16 teams might have been a little bit more attainable. Just the ways in which FIFA tend to operate have ruined what not ruined, because we'll see what the tournament actually happens, like how it goes, because it might get pretty interesting when you start hitting the knockouts. Because one thing about the 32 team group stage and then onwards knockouts, it is kind of a perfect tournament setup, which is of course why FIFA no longer wants to use it for the Men's World Cup, because why not just have 48 teams and make everyone qualify almost for the knockouts and kind of spoil that balance of competition there. So I think there's a really interesting concept behind it, which I suspect is what's got a lot of people curious about what it's going to look like. But there's so much cynicism around the tournament, which some of it I think is kind of harsh because we haven't actually done it yet. Is people sort of looking for reasons to be upset about it rather than let it play out and then assess it afterwards. But that is purely because it's got the big FIFA corruptness slash just overly commercial intentions behind it overriding everything else. So yeah, there's a nice concept in there somewhere though, I think.
But none of this is new. The Club World Cup's been around for, as I said, a long time, and I know that because a New Zealand team has competed in this tournament for a long time. And
Auckland City have qualified for more Club World Cups than any other team on the planet.
yeah,
But
there
of
we
course,
go.
this is a very revamped version of it.
Right, there we go. And none of the previous tournaments have mattered in any way, shape, or form. Like there's
Not really, no.
yeah. So like I
I think
appreciate
that's why they've tried to change it to make it a bit more of a real tournament, but they've got greedy with it, you know.
and like I strictly from a New Zealand perspective, like big ups Auckland City, I respect Auckland City. They are one of the most dynastic Kiwi sporting organizations. They are not the best football team in New Zealand. They are not the best football team in Oceania. Technically, through the FIFA qualification pathway for this exhibition tournament, they are. But they are like this is another thing. I was like, I just don't know if it's I kind of feel well. I'll say this: I love anything when New Zealand, like World Test Championship, New Zealand won it, so I love it. Right, like you were talking poo-poo about the Football World Cup expansion, easier for New Zealand. I love it. Right, like anything when New Zealand is getting an easier pathway, when New Zealand wins, when New Zealand does well, I love it. So the Club World Cup, New Zealand's had a team for a long time in the Club World Cup. I should love it. But I think there's going to be people who are watching this and thinking Auckland City, they are representing New Zealand and Oceania football. This is New Zealand football. This is Oceania football, where it's quite clearly not.
Well, it sort of is. Because I mean, you can argue like the two A-League teams, but they play in Australia. They might be New Zealand-based clubs, but they're kind of Australian league clubs. Well, they are Australian league clubs, which is why they're not eligible to do all this stuff. And Auckland City win the Oceania Champions League all the time. They keep doing that. But yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things I had a difficult time with yesterday. Just the amount of like, there's either condescension about Auckland City's participation from overseas, or there's like immediately using that as like a cane to whip the tournament itself. It's like, well, this tournament is clearly a joke because why is this team there, kind of thing. Or there's just straight up like the overly uh, the people who just start almost fetishizing this thing about the amateur players playing against the global elite superstar types and taking that too far. Because all the even like in the newsletter I mentioned, like even some very reputable sources keep repeating this idea that, well, some of the players couldn't even go there because they couldn't get time off work, which is not true, and no one has ever said it was true. And I don't even exactly know where it comes from, other than I know there were some players who didn't go to the Oceania Champions League because they were saving up their annual leave so that they could go to this tournament. But that's like, it takes 3 seconds of reading and comprehension to figure out what that means when those quote, like, it's just the way in which things are repeated without even trying to understand it has kind of taken me to a point where it's like, well, I think I might just ignore every kind of non-New Zealand perspective on Auckland City's participation. Because at first that's interesting. I want to see what they say about these players. I want to hear if people that Mario Willich guy in midfield, he's pretty handy. I'd like to hear those kind of recommendations, but then there's so much noise and so much like erroneous noise as well that it's gotten too weird. So I think we'll just stick with that Kiwi perspective, I guess.
Everything you said there could be copied and pasted into discussions around Test cricket, but you're kind of hitting my point there. Auckland City is a quasi amateur, cash in hand professional team. But New Zealand has professional football teams. As you said, like then you're getting into the qualification pathway for this tournament. But my point is that people are looking at Auckland City and thinking these are the professional football teams in New Zealand. Wait, so these guys are amateur, but does New Zealand even have professional football teams? Wait, so these guys are the professional football team from New Zealand and they lost 10-0. So New Zealand football sucks. But it's like, well, no, we actually have two professional football teams and we have a really good footballing culture here. None of which...
A host of professional players who play at overseas clubs and,
yes.
Which is where the bulk of the national team comes from. We're not picking national team players out of Auckland City,
So like I understand what you're saying. You did a good job of reporting all this in the in our newsletter, the nichecase.substack.com. Check that out, sign up. And you did a great job reporting on the what do we want to call it? Just the bullcaca around the amateur status of these players, all of which is fair. But we also have professional footballers. We also have like professional football teams who would, like Auckland FC, they might beat Auckland City 10-0 as well. Wellington Phoenix, they might beat Auckland City 6-0. That's just a reflection of the A-League stat, I just put a few goals there.
I think it's at least 6-1 there.
Yeah, so
I think they're keeping that clean sheet.
I just find that a bit goofy, and to me that reflects the Club World Cup. Like, to me, the Club World Cup isn't any different to... Well, it is a little bit different because they're not dancing, but I don't really see a whole lot of difference between the Club World Cup and Banana Ball. Mainly because in football, like, there's so many fantastic, legit tournaments in these windows around the professional leagues. Euros, the Copa, the African Confederation tournament, which Ivory Coast won. And then you have friendlies that, like Test cricket now, thanks to the best cricket tournament competition ever, tests matter. There is context around Test cricket, and there is all sorts of context around international friendlies. International friendlies are more interesting than the Club World Cup.
Yeah, that's probably, other than like the cynical FIFA stuff, I think that's the most legitimate criticism of this tournament is, do we need more football? Do we not have too much football? Is it not unfair on these players who, like, if you're a well, I was going to say European, from a top European nation, but it's kind of true for most countries. I know African Cup of Nations is sort of held during the European season, for example. That's slightly different, but I think that's the Gold Cup, they call it, in North and Central America, is happening right now. So, like, if you're a top level international, chances are you finish a very grueling season and then you've got to play a World Cup. And then the next year you finish a very grueling season and maybe you get a summer off for a couple of weeks there, but the next year there's an international tournament, your confederation tournament happening there. It's like you one like 2-3 week holiday every 2 years for what is like a incredibly demanding athletic job that these guys are holding down. Like, this is their job. This is what they're expected to do, is to be in prime physical condition as like every week, often twice a week, and there's no time at all to rest. Like, I think that's a very valid reason of why do we need so much football. But you know, as I say before, there is still there's definitely a niggling voice in the back of my head that likes the concept behind this tournament and would like to see it done properly. I just don't have a lot of faith that it's going to be done properly by Mr. Infantino and company, but you know, maybe somewhere down the line. We'll see, because it sounds like they're losing a lot of money by hosting it in a country like America that just doesn't care. It's like they're just not interested. They're only give away tickets to get people there. There will be traveling fans, but those traveling fans will probably also be arrested and detained. So, America being what it is, so maybe some lessons will be learned, and in 4 years' time when they do it again, it'll be done a little bit more properly and taken a bit more seriously. But there are, yeah, there's some gimmicky aspects to the way it's been handled this time that a little bit distasteful, and then also these guys just don't get a break. Lionel Messi moved to America to tone it down a little bit from what he'd been doing in Europe for the whole of his career since he was like 15 or 16, and he's just expected to play all the time. If he doesn't play, the team that he's playing against puts out a statement about it because they have to apologize to their fans for him not being available because they wanted to go see him play against their team. And there's circus vibes to it, you know, there's circus vibes.
Which reminds me, going back to cricket, what's the easiest way to ease up the pressure on the cricketing schedule? Don't play 5-test series. Like, it just saves 10 days, give or take a couple of rest days, travel days. You got 15 days right there. And there's only 3 nations that play 5-test series. So it seems a little bit selfish of them. But I would like to finish this ranting and raving introduction to the podcast with Vincent Kompany. And as you said, you have a quote here from the paid section of our newsletter via Substack, thenishcase.substack.com, talking about scouting for the National League. Vincent Kompany says, I saw dogs in the background. It was great. I think there was a barbecue going on in the background. And every now and then, a ball from another pitch just interrupted the middle of the game. Vincent Kompany didn't see a dog take a poo on the field. He didn't reference the graffiti on the shipping containers. He didn't even reference any dogs. He didn't say any dogs coming onto the field. He didn't say anything about dogs weeing and pooing on the field. So I'm not sure how thorough his scouting was, to be honest, but he did spot a barbecue.
Yeah, which I can't remember thinking. I can't recall an instance of that, but I know for certain that they would have happened. Of course, there's going to be barbecues at a nice Kiwi weekend afternoon sporting event like that. He appreciates it though, right? He gets the vision there. He's saying how he sort of you know, he said in there it was good, and he gets it. I like that from Vincent Kompany. He realizes that we're moving on a different wavelength in this competition, and we talk about this a lot. How just like fun/funny the New Zealand footballing culture can be, and that's an element. And Mr. Kompany, maybe I don't know. Maybe he needs to. Auckland City's head coach isn't there at the moment, so maybe he can take over, and we'll get him involved and we'll get him a couple free sausages on the barbecue. Those quotes as well, I think, was that came from Stuff because they sent football reporter Andrew Volman over there to be like on site, which feels significant enough. Wouldn't have maybe 20 years ago, but in this media landscape, that feels significant enough to say, look at that great quote we got because a journalist was allowed to actually go to an overseas event and do some journalism. You know, what a happy thing to be able to witness. I think he was over there for the All Whites games as well previously, so managing to double it up. It's good work if you can get it, but it's also the if you can get it bit is the bit that never really seems to happen anymore. Look at that's that good perspective that I was hoping for about Auckland City mingling with the best and brightest in the world. It's like that's kind of doesn't happen by accident. You gotta actually get out there and do a bit of work. So I like seeing that stuff happen too.
I mean, best and brightest, but Chris Wood's not there, Marcus Staminich not there,
No,
Joe
that's
Bell's
true.
not there, Elijah Just isn't there, Tyler Binden's not there. So like, chill out. It's not the best and brightest of the footballing world, just right
Well,
there.
by the time the next one happens, they might all be there because Nottingham Forest probably, I don't know, sign Joe Bell, get him in there with Marcus Stamenic in the midfield, win the Champions League, qualify for the next one. Sweet as.
I was surprised by the amount of analysis you had for that game, though. Like that was a bit crazy, and all
Was
of that
there
is
any?
in the newsletter, the Monday newsletter via Substack. Once again, the nichecase.substack.com. We have a free section featuring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 paragraphs about Auckland FC versus Auckland City. Sorry. There you go. Auckland City versus Bayern Munich. And then a couple more paragraphs in the section for paid subscribers. Most of what you wrote was stuff we've talked about here. You referenced the prestigious media outlets reporting on the part-time status of Auckland City, all of which was incorrect. And of course, you had the Vincent Company quote there, and a bit of formation chat in the paid section as well. Oh, stat graphics, sorry, average positions. So that was good from you, and a bit of XG chat as well. You really went hundies on something that I've compared to Banana Ball. So shout out to you for your investment in the Club World Cup.
They were just screenshots. I didn't have to do a lot of work. I did laugh at the I also kind of included those because they're a little bit funny. Specifically the average positional thing of Bayern Munich, where every single player's their average position was in the other half, and even goalkeeper, not abnormal for goalkeeper Manuel Neuer, but his average position was outside his penalty area. So it might have been a bit of a reflection of how that game went.
Yes, now that you've brought that up, I can actually see what's happening here. And there's one Auckland City player nudging halfway, coming out of their own end.
Maya
So
Bevan,
good stuff
he must
there.
have been lonely.
Who was the best player for Auckland City? How about that? Let's do a bit of analysis. Who was the best player?
Well, you notice all those paragraphs about that game. There was analysis of the aftermatch and the reaction and the intent of Bayern Munich, who picked their best team absolutely ruthlessly. Not a lot about the game itself because nothing to say. Nothing to say. So I don't even know how I would pick a best player. Do I say the goalkeeper who made some nice saves? Yeah, he conceded 10 goals though. And one of the goals was directly his fault when he passed the ball to a striker. So I don't even know how I would answer that. I don't think there was a best player, but it was a fun experience, and they can tell their grandkids about it someday when they played Bayern Munich and lost 10-0.
So in summary, there we have the World Test Championship is awesome. We've got Banana Ball is better than Major League Cricket, and the Club World Cup is something to tell your grandkids about.
If you played in it. If you didn't play in it, then probably not.
I certainly will not be telling my grandkids about not even watching the Club World Cup. There's nothing really to say other than we recorded a pretty hectic podcast introduction about it once upon a time. Do you have some mindfulness for us? How about that?
Yeah, I do. I do. I have some mindfulness from the poet William Stafford, or should I say the person William Stafford, because his quote is that everybody is born a poet.
That's pretty abstract. Like, I can't even lie. For us, that's quite abstract, and I don't know the point of it. Yeah. It's a bit like the Club World Cup. Good in theory. You can see how it might work. Good idea. I'm struggling to riff off that.
Well, the state in which you're born is probably like the purest state in which you can hold, right? Because there's been no social, influence there yet. None of the nature or the nurture. You just kind of like that's the starting point. So if you start as a poet, and you don't feel like a poet 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, well, that's because you're strayed from the path, I guess, right? Like the way you began is the way in which you're sort of trying to get back to, but it's a sort of I don't know, the way I interpreted that quote is that whether we are, and take poet as an abstract thing as well, like that, not just the meaning of it, but like the definition of poet, artist, creative, happy, fulfilled person, like whatever, however you want to take that. We all have that potential. Like we're all born with that potential. It's like an inherent thing as we can achieve that. If we're not doing that right now, it's because we must also be doing something that prohibits that. So, getting back on the natural course will see you through one way or another to whatever your concept of that may be for being a poet.
Beauty. It's, you went even more abstract, so I like it. But you did spark a panic within me, and I thought this is a time to just search up a Lord of the Rings quote and try and ground ourselves in it. And this is actually aligned with it. It doesn't have the who says this quote, but it's here we go. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to.
I think that might have been a Bilbo line. It sounds like a Bilbo thing to say. So if it's not him, it would have been Gandalf. So we'll toss a coin. Or we go to the deeper level and say Tolkien because he wrote all the characters, so he wrote all the quotes. Yeah, no, we've got two ideas there about like sort of journeying there, and like one is where you start from and one is where you're heading to, and perhaps in time they come to be the same place.
I also just like that first line. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. And that's just where we're at.
This day and age.
That's where we're at in 2025. So I'd also say it's quite dangerous just being inside. So make sure you do get out your door, because here we go. Being inside is just as dangerous as being outside, but you can do your best indoor, outdoor, indica, sativa, whatever you're doing. Big up yourself, and make sure you are signed up to our newsletter via Substack, thenichecase.substack.com. That newsletter comes out every Monday and Thursday. That's fully free with a bunch of notes for free signups, as well as a section for paid subscribers, which just has even more Kiwi sporting information. Every Thursday, we deliver our bonus podcast, which is available for the paid Substack subscribers and the folks on Patreon. Patreon's a great way to support our work and fund our mahi straight up the guts. You get that bonus podcast every Thursday, as well as the full newsletter copied into Patreon as well. You can donate through Buy Me a Coffee. Otherwise, just have a listen, have a watch, and subscribe on YouTube, like it on YouTube, and enjoy your day, because that's what we're here to do. And we are here to talk about Aotearoa sport, which includes the one and only Steven Adams, who signed a new contract with the Houston Rockets. This was an interesting insight into the priorities of New Zealand media, and you did shout out to one of the hearty journalists in New Zealand doing his best to share Vincent Kompany's insights into the local footballing scene. But I will say that all the New Zealand reporting about Steven Adams had these New Zealand dollar figures, big money,
Yep.
as if we should care about how much money Steven Adams is making. If you're an enlightened listener of the Niche Case, you know we don't care at all. I don't care how much money Lydia Ko's making. I don't care how much money Chris Wood's making. And I sure as hell don't care about how much money Steven Adams is making. And this is the important thing. The New Zealand media, they're reporting it in New Zealand dollars. We know why they're doing that, because you need that big old $1 million mark, millions of dollars in the headline. And those are the dark forces we're working up against in our Kiwi sports coverage. But the real insight is the US dollar figure, because the US dollar figure helps us understand how Steven Adams' contract fits into the NBA salary cap. There is no use in me knowing the New Zealand dollar figure, aside from counting Steven Adams' money, which I'm not doing, which I don't want to do. But there is an actual value in understanding how many US dollars Steven Adams' contract with the Houston Rockets is going to be, because the NBA salary cap discussion and coverage and knowledge is transparent. And the best thing here is that Steven Adams' contract, not only is it pretty cheap, so he goes, next season he's on 14 million, and his last season with Houston Rockets was 12 million. So he's getting a little increase in salary next season. But the best thing and the most Kiwi thing about all of this is that Steven Adams' contract goes down. 14 million, 13 million, 11 million. It's basically decreasing by $1 million US, of course, per season as the NBA salary cap goes up. So Steven Adams will earn more money next season as an NBA player, but his contract goes down as the salary cap goes up. That is a very generous thing for Steven Adams to do, but it's also, when you learn about how Steven Adams and his contracts have operated in the NBA landscape, this is completely aligned with all of that, and it's completely aligned with Steven Adams being a hearty Kiwi from Aotearoa.
Yeah, I never understand the obsession with people wanting to know how much money sporting figures make. Especially because that's not even true when it comes to the Steven Adams thing. Like, he doesn't get paid in New Zealand dollars. So it's like that's not even that's just like that's more of that Auckland City part-time players who can't attend the Club World Cup because they've got to go to work on Monday kind of reporting. But yes, it's an interesting contract, isn't it? And it's definitely got a little bit of because if he left the Houston Rockets, if he had saw this through to free agency and he'd taken an option elsewhere, for whatever reason, maybe he decided he didn't want to be a Rocket anymore, he wanted to try something else, the most likely way other teams could have targeted him, and the Houston Rockets, because they have his what they call the bird rights, they had the ability to offer above where they are in the salary cap. So they can go above the salary cap in order to retain him. So they always had the offer to raise whatever anyone else came up with. So he would have had to straight up say, like, no, I don't want to play for the Rockets, for him to be leaving like that. But he probably would have been targeted with one of those like mid-level exception type contracts, which would have been around about the 14, 15 million US dollars, of course, per season, which is probably slightly above what he actually ended up signing with for Houston. So with the team where they could have played above everyone else, he's ended up signing a contract that, even at its highest paid season, and as you say, the contract goes down the next 2 years, is probably slightly below what he might have been able to command on the open market. So that tells you one thing for sure. It's that Steven Adams wasn't trying to get the best financial deal, as a lot of NBA players seem to do. It's how can I get the offer that pays me the most money? He's trying to get the offer that allows him to go play in the NBA Finals for the first time in his career, as he, more than a decade into it. And with that, a little bit team friendly on that. It's certainly team friendly with the timing of it, because getting it done before free agency even begins. Like, he didn't even take offers from other teams because he was just like, let's get this done now. Let's get this sorted. I am where I want to be. We'll figure it out. But by doing that, he's signed the contract before the Rockets have had to make a decision on the contract option of Fred VanVleet. But I think will stay with the Rockets unless they trade him in some kind of blockbuster deal. But I don't really think that'll happen. I think there are other guys that would sooner be traded. Um, they haven't had to figure that out, so this clears one little aspect of that. If they want to, they might just take up the option on that contract, or they might want to give Fred VanVleet a longer deal, which would involve negotiating and worrying about the salary cap. Well, now they've got a bit more clarity of what the salary cap looks like, because they've got their other main free agent. He's sorted for the next 3 years. It also means they've got this done before the draft, which is probably when I think it's the 9th overall draft pick that they own. Thing about draft picks is they're more valuable when they're draft picks. They're probably less valuable when they're players. When you've used the draft pick and you've got a guy, something about that just seems to remove the I don't know, the potential of it. I think the NBA teams are a little bit, they get the light in their eyes sometimes. They get these grand ideas and they they love the hypothetical nature of things rather than the reality nature of things, which is, I think you see that a lot in the draft. I was watching a video earlier about how the quality of draft selection seems to be getting a lot worse. We're seeing a lot more like top 10 picks who don't go on to do that much, and second round picks who go on to become MVPs and whatever. It's like, well, how do these guys slip into the second round? Well, because maybe the draft isn't exactly the scientific procedure that people think it is. Therefore, if it's that uncertain, again, like your draft pick is more valuable before it's used than after it's used. And the Houston Rockets are being linked with Kevin Durant. By Kevin Durant, not by the Houston Rockets. They might well be interested. I think it's certainly something you'd have to have a few discussions in house about how to proceed with something like that. But Kevin Durant himself, through his people, has leaked it out that there's only 3 teams he wants to play for when not if, but when he leaves the Phoenix Suns. It's either going to be the Miami Heat, the San Antonio Spurs, or the Houston Rockets. First of all, nice little reflection on the Rockets' development and culture there, that Kevin Durant picked them. Like KD put them in his top 3, and of course KD, former teammate of Steven Adams, so him re-signing might even be a little part of that. Just saying, yeah, I would love to play with Steve-O again. He was great. I won MVP while I was playing alongside Steve-O once upon a time. And yeah, there's by Steven Adams agreeing this contract extension as soon as he did, he's given the Houston Rockets a lot of flexibility to go in a few different directions there, with the with the draft coming up, with the trade market coming up, with free agency coming up, Fred VanVleet's negotiation thing. They've just taken one variable off the board by getting that Steven Adams contract done nice and early. But there is one aspect of that where I think the team have done him a solid in return, which has given him that 3rd year, because I'm not sure how many other teams would have given Steven Adams a 3rd year on that contract. His previous 2 contract extensions, I'm pretty sure, were only 2 years. When he signed with the Pelicans, they gave him a 2-year extension. And when he got traded to the Grizzlies, they gave him a 2-year extension as well. Now he signed a 3-year extension after the age of 30, which it gets a little bit rarer for a big man who's just missed an entire season prior to this one and was injury managed through a lot of this past season on his comeback. Clearly, like, that works because we saw what he looked like in the playoffs, but this isn't after a full load of 82 games or anything like that. That's some nice reciprocal work from the Houston Rockets, I think, as well. Like, Steven Adams has done them very well. He's given them the best case scenario from their perspective in terms of the timing of this, the type of taking a little bit less money, all of that, accepting that he's, going to be the 6th man in this team as well, like not leaving to another team where he could have been a starter, let alone aside from the money aspect. And in return, they've given him a slightly longer contract. So it's a nice little handshake deal where I think everyone wins and everyone is clearly working in the same direction too.
When the season finished, we were talking about his free agency. But now that he's signed this deal, there's things saying that he's never been a free agent. So can you explain that situation, if it's good or bad, and how you view it?
Well, it's not really good or bad. It's just to say he's never run down his contract. This is the closest he got to the end of the contract. Normally, he gets into the last year and he signs an extension before the last season of that contract. That's what he's done in the past. Twice that's come with him being traded. There's also an extension he signed with the OKC Thunder. So there's the rookie deal. There's the big deal with the Thunder where he was earning like 25 mil a year. Dropped to like I think 2 years, probably late teens or 20-ish after that. And then there was one of sort of like 2 years, 15, something. It might be less. It might be 15s and then 12s or something like that. I'm not sure. But this would then be his fifth NBA contract. And yeah, he's just always re-signed with either the team he's just been traded to or the team that he currently is with. He's never gone to the end of that contract and taken, free agency dinners and whining and dining and let's get the agent on the phone and figure out how we can, play each side against it. Just create a bidding war and all this. None of that fuss. He just stays where he is and signs with the team where he feels settled in that moment, which I find a production agency, if you can strike up bargains and whatever, and if you get that bidding war going, then suddenly you might find yourself getting overpaid on a deal. But I think the long-term stability of staying with the team where you are sort of respected and with the exception of the Pelicans season, wherever he's gone, teams have been generally winning a lot of games. Like he hasn't necessarily had the postseason success since early in his career, but he's certainly he's played for a lot of playoff teams. I think that probably tallies up in the long term where you're at least getting as much money, if not more. But more to the point, because as we've sort of established with this, I think Steven Adams is worrying about how he can get the absolute top dollar. I think it allows him to stay in settled roles where he knows what he's doing, he knows what his value to the team is, he feels that value because they're giving him these contracts, so clearly they want him around. It's a more harmonious way of working your way through your career as opposed to like let's get everyone fighting with each other and give me all the offers and let's see, I'm the king on the mountain here and everyone else has got to do my bidding and come up with the best possible contract for me. Steven Adams throughout his career seems to have a bit more, as you fully expect from the type of human that he is, like a bit more give and take, where it's like, we'll help the team out here, they'll help me out. Everything's reciprocal.
So Steven Adams has been conducting himself in NBA contracts in the opposite way of like 80% of the NBA players do. So that's why Steven Adams is the ultimate Kiwi. And of course, we need to touch on the NBL, where we have Canterbury Rams still top of the table, followed by Wellington and Taranaki. Then there is a bit of a logjam chasing the next final spot. So, well, you got top two. You wrote here in our newsletter, the top two go straight into the semis, and then teams 3 to 6, which currently is Taranaki, Manawatu, Auckland, Tuatara, Southland Sharks on the rise. They would be competing in finals. Canterbury had a win almost a week ago against Tauranga Whai. We also had a 1-point win for Wellington Saints in which Hiram Harris went crazy. And I'm also curious with Taranaki getting a win and moving into third. I am curious about the status of Carlin Davison, who is preparing for an NBL season with the Breakers, but we still don't know Hiram Harris's involvement in the NBL, Australian NBL. So break us down the Wellington Saints and Taranaki with a special spotlight on Hiram Harris and Carlin Davison.
Yeah, Davison has continued to do the stuff he's been doing since the start of the season, except that 3-point percentage has dipped down. He's sitting at around 34%. He was hovering over 40s at the start. I don't think that's like First of all, I don't think that's surprising because his free throw percentage always suggested that this was maybe not a sustainable deep shoot and run that he was on to begin the season with. But I also don't think that's an issue because he's not that type of guy. He's not like a hangout on the wing and just shoot threes all day type player. He wants to attack the rim. He wants to get around, he wants to get into the paint and show off his bounce and grab rebounds and all this. So just the threat of being able to shoot 3-pointers is enough. And he's proven that from across the season. Like he will take the open shots if he's there. So I don't think the fact that his percentage is dipped is in any way a major concern or anything like that. And it doesn't overshadow the fact he's had a spectacular season. Although I also think Jack Andrew, who don't think he played this week in Taranaki's win over Hawke's Bay, was it? They beat someone. Yeah, it was over Hawke's Bay. They were slightly down at halftime, and then they had a big second half and won by double digits. So I don't think Jack Andrew played that game, but credit to him too, because he, I think, has also had a massively he's shown big improvements this year. He did spend a year, maybe two, as a development player with Perth Wildcats once upon a time, like a couple of years ago. He's probably 2 or 3 years removed from that at this point. So he has a little bit of NBL experience. He feels like someone who's gone to another level himself, albeit overshadowed by Carlin Davison jumping like 4 levels in one season. So they're good, Taranaki. They've got where are we here? Let's check the old thing. Craig Moller, Australian fellow, white guy with the dreadlocks, did some nice things for them. I think Dan Greeters didn't play that game either, but so they were down a couple of starting level players in that one and came through good. They're looking pretty solid for third place. They're a couple wins clear of the teams that big logjam. There's between 10th and 4th. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams separated by 2 wins, and Nelson are 1 behind that. So with Nelson 1 off at the end, so there's actually 6 teams separated by 1 win. That's gonna get a little bit crazy over the last 3 rounds. That's because there's only 6 spots in the finals. We know 2 of the teams that have already qualified, Canterbury and Wellington, have locked that in. And they should be the 2 top seeds. But yeah, it's everything below that. Slight exception, Taranaki seem to be pulling away, but everything below that is pretty much up for grabs over the remainder of the season. Hiram Harris, buzzer beater. How good is that? It's the right type of Hiram Harris buzzer beater as well. It's just him, bit of speed, bit of athleticism, shakes free of any markers, and then it's just a lob towards him where he just like catches it in a little off the bank in midair. Just makes it look so easy. The way he plays all of his basketball makes it look so easy. And yes, this just doesn't seem to be any update on what he's doing next season. I hope that just means that the Perth Wildcats are going to re-sign him and we haven't heard anything about it yet. Because the Breakers can't fit him in, and someone's got to. Either this guy's too good to not be playing in the Aussie NBL. But we'll see. At the moment, it's just we might have to wait a little bit. There was talk as well on the Perth Wildcats being very keen on signing Yanni Wetzel, which would be interesting because I think the one criticism you can make of the Breakers going back to the Kiwi player focus is that perhaps they didn't sign, or with that, not through lack of intent, but just they weren't able to sign the top Kiwi prospects. Like Finn Delaney has come back to the NBL, but it's not with the Breakers, it's with Melbourne. If Yanni Wetzel were to come back to the NBL and sign with Perth, that would be another instance of that kind of thing. Flynn Cameron chose, like the Breakers were in for Flynn Cameron, they weren't able to get him, he chose to sign with Adelaide instead. So arguably, that's the hang up on their free agency, is that perhaps they've signed a lot of really good Kiwi role players, but they kind of missed out on the Kiwi star player that they might otherwise have liked to have. But perhaps that'll just be Carlin Davidson. Who knows? He might just carry on the trajectory he's gone. But yeah, we got to get Hiram Harris back in there somehow, and hopefully that's just Perth waiting to because they lost Bryce Cotton, so everything's a little bit up in the air there. Maybe they're just waiting for some other big splash before they start announcing their next tier of free agents or slash re-signings. But we'll have to see. I am cautiously optimistic about that because they do seem to keep track of him a lot. They're doing that with Ty Webster as well. And I don't think Ty Webster's coming back to the NBL. His team in France made it to the semi-finals, so they did pretty well. Also, weirdly on Finn Delaney, after he signed with Melbourne, he popped up on a short-term thing. They did a Club World Cup, but just for Asia, so an Asian Champions League type thing. And like last week, where it's just the 8 nations, that it didn't seem to be one of those official, this is like a guaranteed FIBA thing. It seemed like there's just eight countries had an agreement. We'll just send our best team, that whoever wins will go have a little mini tournament at the end of the season. And the champions of Japan were Utsunomiya Brex, which is the team. I wrote about this in the email a couple of weeks ago, so hopefully people are aware, because it's an incredible story. This is the team that Kevin Braswell was coaching when he, suddenly and tragically passed away earlier this year. So that team were like gathered around the hospital bed of their dying coach for stages of their season, went to his funeral. A few months later, won a championship. And they had this like framed picture of Braswell as well, that they kept his spot on the bench. Like his chair was kept empty, and they kept this like portrait of him there as well. It was really quite a moving thing how they did that. And even more so when you consider that the assistant who took over as interim coach was Zico Coronel, another Kiwi basketball and Kevin Braswell is American, but he's American who lived here for a long time, married to a New Zealander, etc., etc. So yeah, really beautiful stuff there. Isaac Fotu plays for that team, but for this, and also so does DJ Newell, former Breakers import from a few years back. But for this Asian Champions League thingamajig, which they went on and won as well, Finn Delaney got called up as a short-term thing. He'd been playing for a team, I think, second tier in Japan. So yeah, we don't talk a lot about because it's very hard to track. I find it very difficult to track some of these things. The Kiwis who play in like outside of New Zealand and Australia, and certainly outside of like EuroLeague, Euroball type stuff, but plenty of good things happening there outside, like out of sight, out of mind as well. And Finn Delaney popping up alongside Zico Coronel and Isaac Fotu on winning an Asian Champions League type situation thing was a pretty cool one that happened within the last week.
The New Zealand Warriors have not played in the last week. They had a bye in the NRL. But this was a really good weekend for the Warriors organization, because the New South Wales Cup Warriors had a win over Parramatta Eels in Sydney, and the Jersey Flegg Warriors had a win over the Parramatta Eels in Sydney. So now the Warriors they're still first in New South Wales Cup, 13-1 in reserve grade. They are 7-0 in away games. Undefeated in away games. But there's also a little rise for the Jersey Flegg team. They are now 8th. They've got 5 wins, 7 losses, and 2 draws. And I wrote in the paid section of our newsletter yesterday that Jack Thompson has... Jack Thompson. Who is Jack Thompson? He's an Aussie half from Newcastle who, as we know, joined the under-17s midway through the season last year, helped the under-17s win a championship, and then he moved up to under-19s, but he was out injured for the under-19 season, so he just started to appear in the halves for the under-21 team a few weeks ago alongside Jet Cleary. The Warriors have won 3 of their last 5 games, I believe, in which Jack Thompson has played. So they have 5 wins total for the season, and they've won 3 of their last 5 games that Jack Thompson has played. So when you add in his under-17 championship mahi and his quick rise into the under-21 team, then his impact on winning for the under-21 team, I think Jack Thompson's really good. And this goes like we've got a lot of Aussie halves here. We've got Luke Metcalf, Luke Hanson, Tanner Boyd, Jet Cleary, and Jack Thompson. And all the attention's going to be on Jet Cleary, as we've talked about before. But Luke Hanson is ranked ahead of Jet Cleary because he's playing New South Wales Cup far more often than Jet Cleary. And then you've got this other dude, Jack Thompson, who seems to be just as good, if not better than Jet Cleary. Because Jet Cleary's been playing under-21s all year, and they weren't winning that many games. But then Jack Thompson comes into the team and they start winning. I mean, none of this is like hardcore observational insight. It's just connecting the dots. And Jack Thompson's mahi with the Warriors has been fantastic. So I think Jack Thompson is a name, like he wasn't in my top 10 emerging youngsters because he is an under 19 player just grinding away in under 21s. And all my top 10 emerging youngsters, they've all played New South Wales Cup. So Jack Thompson wasn't in that tier. But Jack Thompson's doing fantastic stuff in the Warriors system. And while on the topic of that, though we've mentioned the halves, the Aussie halves, we've talked about that a long time. I will say that Tanner Boyd, he has won all 12 of his games in New South Wales Cup. And it's kind of crazy. Like, shout out to the Gold Coast Titans because Rotorua's Tukamihia Simpkins returned to NRL footy with the Titans in their win over the Sea Eagles. So the Titans did get a win, and that win coincided with Simpkins getting game time. But a backstory about Simpkins, he was recruited by the Cowboys coming out of Rotorua Boys High School, quickly left the Cowboys to join the West Tigers under Michael Maguire, and he made his debut with the Tigers in 2021, didn't kick on, might have had a little off-field situation, and then he moved up to play Queensland Cup with North Devils. From there, it's been said a bunch of places, the best prop in Queensland Cup. And he actually did a summer training with the Redcliffe Dolphins, or just the Dolphins NRL squad, via the connection with North Devils. But then he was signed to the Titans last summer. So the Cowboys recruited him. He left the Cowboys to go to the Tigers. And then Tigers shuffled him out. And then the Dolphins had a look at him. Like, he was playing for their reserve grade team. He was training with the Dolphins NRL squad, and he signs with the Titans. So it's a bit of a weird backstory there. But he returned to footy with the Titans in their win over the Sea Eagles. Looked really good. He's a big middle forward, hard-working, skillful, loves an offload. And to me, he seems like the type of middle forward that Coach Des Hazlewood loves. So I'm curious about Simpkins' involvement in the Titans top 17 moving forward. But my original point was Tanner Boyd was playing for the Titans. Aaron Clark was playing for the Titans. Now they're with the Warriors. Like, I don't know. I feel like the Titans all season, they've needed a halfback. And the Warriors have Tanner Boyd now, and he has not lost a New South Wales Cup game this season. 12 games, 12 wins, and 16 try assists. 16 try assists in 12 wins for Tanner Boyd, who is, of course, a young Aussie half. Like, by young, I'm saying 25 years or younger, and he is behind Luke Metcalf in that category. But there's another Aussie who is not a half that you need to learn about in the Warriors system, and that is Brandon Norris, who is from the Northern Territory, Darwin, I think, Northern Sharks Junior. But he played his junior footy in Brisbane, or some of his junior footy, because I think he was affiliated with the Broncos. So he was playing for North Devils, bring them up again. And then he was recruited by the Warriors. So that's another very nifty piece of recruitment by the Warriors in signing Brandon Norris, who has played a bunch of games at centre for the Jersey Flegg team. He's got 6 tries in 7 games. Very fast, natural outside back. So, I mean, that under-21s team, you've got Brandon Norris settling in at centre, and then you've got the halves combination of Jet Cleary and Jack Thompson doing a great job. One's from Penrith, the other's from Newcastle, and of course, you've got a bunch of other young Aussie halves in there as well. So it was a good weekend for the Warriors in New South Wales Cup and Jersey Flegg. I'm still fascinated by the young bench that the New South Wales Cup team has got, with Jacob Auloa stepping up to New South Wales Cup. Makaya Tafua, he's been out injured in recent weeks. He's kind of the next best dummy half behind Samuel Healy coming out of Christchurch. Below Makaya Tafua, we've got Jacob Auloa, who is from Auckland, Point Chevalier Junior. He played 29 minutes in New South Wales Cup in a big win, and he literally didn't have a run. But he did make 17 tackles at 100%, though. And he is him and Makaya Tafua, I keep saying it, fantastic dummy halves because of how ruthless they are. Both of them can play small forward. Both of them love to smash blokes when tackling. Both of them can run the ball as middle forwards. Like, some of their try-scoring highlights are literally them catching the ball one pass off the ruck and just running and scoring a try. But they are both mainly hookers. And then you've got Jason Salalilo and Toby Crosby, who talked about them all season as well. Fantastic middle forwards. And before going into the NRL tier, I do want to lay this out. This was a fun exercise for me. This is a Warriors team consisting of local juniors who are all a bit younger. And I had to make a few. I had to get a bit funky in the halves because I said local juniors, young local juniors. Well, Jet Cleary's not a local junior. Luke Hansen's not a local junior. Jack Thompson's not a local junior. Tana Boyd's not a local junior. Like, they're all Aussies, you know. Like, unless we're talking about the Warriors Redcliffe era, they're not local juniors. And so my halves combination for this team, because it is a very young team, I do want a leader. My leader is going to be Chanel Harris-Tavita. In the halves with Chanel Harris-Tavita, we have Wellington's Maui Winitana Patalaseo, who is creeping into, he's had a few games of under-21s, but again, a lot of Aussie halves in this category. So we've got a senior half, Chanel Harris-Tavita. We've got a young half from Wellington. Pretty confident that they will do the job considering the rest of the team. Let's go back to fullback. Can't select Taintua Apiki because he's not a local junior. Came up through, I think it was, might have been Burleigh or one of those Queensland teams. So instead at fullback, we have Joseph Ratcliffe from Palmerston North Boys High School. Played under-19s earlier this year. Now the fullback for the under-21s. Very lively, very exciting. Fullback. On the wings, we have Dayon Amatuanai and Sio Kelly. Dayon Amatuanai joined the Warriors from the Panthers, but he is a local junior because he started with the Warriors before joining the Panthers and coming back around. Sio Kelly, I still believe his best position is centre, but freakish talent will get him on the wing. Centres, Ali Leotawa, Rocco Berry. Easy stuff there. Middle forwards, we have Dimitri Vaimonga, Tanner Stowers-Smith, and Jason Salalilo. Starting hooker is Makaya Tafua. Our edge forwards, Jacob Laban and Leka Halasima. That means on the bench we have Jacob Auloa, Iri Iramia, Kalis Fatialofa, and Toby Crosby. That is an awesome rugby league team. There's a couple, there's some really young players, Joseph Ratcliffe, Maui Winitana Patalaseo, but there's also a lot of NRL talent there and a lot of in-between talent that is going to play NRL. I'm pretty confident of that. So one more time, Joseph Ratcliffe, Deon Amatuanai, Ali Leotawa, Rocco Berry, Sio Kelly, Chanel Harris-Tavita, Maui Winitana Patalaseo, Dimitri Vaimonga, Makaya Tafua, Tanner Stowers-Smith, Jason Salalilo, Laban, Halasima, Jacob Auloa, Iri Aramia, Kalis Fatialofa, and Toby Crosby. I love that team. That is an awesome rugby league team, and they are all local juniors rising up through the Warriors system. Staying in this level, I'll just divert away from the Warriors, but we'll stay in the Kiwi-NRL junior tier, because we had Te Huranui Twiddle was playing for the Eels in New South Wales Cup. Fantastic fullback from Turanga Waiwai. He is the premier Kiwi-NRL junior at the Eels, and his best position is fullback. Very slick fullback. Great passer, good runner, and has a little bit of number 6 as well. And in the number 6 position, I think he's actually quite similar to Dylan Brown, similar playing style. There's also a Palmerston North boys factor, because Joseph Ratcliffe, fullback in my local junior Warriors team, he's from Palmerston North Boys High School. There's also Kylam Vunipola, who's from Palmerston North Boys High School, and he is playing for the Broncos in NRLQ, which is their under-20s competition. For those who don't know, there was a completely adequate under-20s competition, under-21s competition in Queensland. The QRL stopped that competition, and then a couple years later, they came up with another competition because they needed to align Queensland Rugby League with the under-21s of New South Wales. It's like, you already had that sorted, but I don't know. So Colin Vunipola, he played one game off the bench, and I think he played another game off the wing for the Broncos in that team. And then there's also Ryder Crosswell, who was a half in the Knights system. He's also from Palmerston North Boys High School. So that's a nice little cluster there. From that cluster, we go back to NRLQ. I need to get this name correct because it's a little bit tricky. But we do have Marley Igasan, who is playing for the Broncos as well. I think he started one game at edge forward, started another game in the middle, and he is from Tauranga, and he is a goal-kicking forward. He's been in the Broncos system for a couple of years now, coming out of Tauranga. Otamotai Jr., who was I think he won like 3 player of the tournaments in a row for the Māori tournaments, like age group tournaments in Aotearoa. You seem to have something funny to say about goal-kicking forwards.
I was just going to say Josh Publi, carrying on that lineage, but it's okay. I withheld it, but whatever.
So yes, Marley Igasan, I think he's the best Kiwi NRL junior playing in NRLQ. But another player to watch out for, aside from Kylam Vunipola, is Luke G. Loy. He's got a couple different variations of his name floating around there. He's played Māori tournaments as well as playing for Waikato in the National Premiership. So all I know about him is he's from the Waikato, and he's got a few different names, but he's known as Lukji Loy, and he's playing edge forward for the Titans. The Titans have also had Meihana Pauling, who is a Horswell junior who actually played for the Warriors in the SG Ball season earlier this year. So watch out for Marley Igasan. He's a very high pedigree junior, similar to the Jordan Ricky and Xavier Willison pipelines. The Broncos love that type of forward, high pedigree, supremely talented. They recruited Jordan Ricky while he was still in Christchurch, but he left Christchurch once he finished school, won awards, multi-tournament MVPs, everything. And then they recruited Xavier Willison. That was a deep cut for recruitment from Aotearoa, and Willison actually moves over to the Gold Coast to go to school. So I think Marley Igasan, he might be doing a bit of schooling there as part of the Broncos system. Going back to Palmerston North boys, we've got Ryder Crossrail. He's playing for the Knights, or he was playing for the Knights. And this brings us into the Kiwi-NRL Knights. So we know Elijah Salisa Leao-Moana, he's already made his NRL debut for the Knights this year. The Knights also have Francis Manolelua. I reckon he might make his debut this year. Edge forward for the Knights, who they recruited from the Panthers. And also Sasaya Latu Mangere East Jr. He has moved. He started the year in under-19 SG Ball on the wing. Now he's playing on the wing in New South Wales Cup. Can play a little bit of centre, but he has settled into that role for the New South Wales Cup team. But the main thing here is that the Knights under-21 team, their Jersey Flegg Cup team, this week, or last weekend, that played against the Roosters, they had half of their team as Kiwi-NRL juniors. A little bit more, because there were 9 Kiwi-NRL juniors in the Knights under-21s team. There was Cullen Gray at fullback. He's from Whangarei, Hikarangi Jr. Hami Loza and Ryder Williams in the halves. So both halves are from Auckland. Ryder Williams Maris Jr., formerly with the Titans. Hami Loza, split time between Mangere East and Otara. 2 halves and the fullback, they're from Aotearoa. You also had Tamakai Moana Whare Aorere and Bailey Carmichael as middle forwards. They are both from Te Puke. Whare Aorere is actually a Te Puke junior, and Carmichael's from Te Puke, but he went through Rotorua Boys High School. They also had Takayo Cranwell, Linwood Jr., Xavier Lynch, Horswell Jr., Jaden Harris, who is from Kohu. I think he's a relation to James Fisher Harris. He's listed as a Hikarangi Jr. And on the bench was Ezekiel Aeti Hornby Jr. So that's 9 players from Aotearoa in the Knights under-21s team. We got 2 from Northland, Helen Gray, Jaden Harris. We had how many from Christchurch? Ezekiel Aeti, Xavier Lynch, Takayo Cranwell. 3 from Christchurch, 2 from Te Puke. Both halves are from Auckland. That kind of sums up the Kiwi-NRL vibes nicely there. They were playing against the Roosters, and the Roosters had Jackson Stewart, Hornby Jr. from Christchurch, and Philip Lava Kiaho, who is from Wesley College. We go, okay, the Warriors under-21s, they were playing the Eels. The Eels had Dakota Kakoi, Linwood Jr. from Christchurch, and Aiti Samuelu from Mangere East. You combine 2 players from the Eels, 2 players from the Roosters. That's 4. That's not as many as the Knights had in their team just by themselves. That was pretty ridiculous as far as the Kiwi-NRL flavor goes. Aside from Te Huranui Twiddle, Kiwi-NRL juniors who have settled into New South Wales Cup, or that I'm tracking on that New South Wales Cup tier, Sosaya Latu, I mentioned him. We got Cassius Tia, Mount Albert Jr., he is with the Bulldogs, and of course the big bopper Felix Fa'atili, also from Christchurch. And I think that's going to take us into the Warriors. Oh, a little bit of NRLW first, though, because I'm not sure if I've said this before, but I do have 5 young NRL wahine that I'm throwing out there ahead of the season. Jadika Tafua from Christchurch. She's with the Sharks, sister of Makaia Tafua. Fane Finau from Otara. She's in the Knights system. Trinity Tauiniai, younger sister of Alexis from Wainui Mata. She's going to be playing for the Dragons. She is awesome. Thought I wrote this down. Don't know if I did, so I'm going to have to go top of the dome. I can't remember. Avery Rose Carmont. She's with the Warriors. Otahuhu Jr. She's important because she's a dummy half, and I'm not sure. Like, the Warriors only have her and Capri Paikau as their dummy halves. So I think Avery Rose Carmont can get a lot of game time with the Warriors. I'm definitely missing someone, but that's all right. No dramas. We'll keep moving because I need to throw up someone as a cult hero status for the Warriors women's team. And this is very important when we are assessing what the Warriors may do in their return to NRLW. Who cares about the rugby union players, right? Like, we can't, as awesome as we know Michaela Brake will be, she is like, for her NRLW career, Michaela Blyde no longer exists. She is known as Michaela Brake, which is a good crossover with her changing of codes. We know she's going to be pretty solid, pretty good. But I can't say to listeners or rugby league fans the Warriors are going to be good in NRLW because they've got rugby union players. That's cool. They're going to help. They come from professional systems, but that is not a reason to raise expectations for success in rugby league. Having a Kiwi fan fullback, Api Nichols, that's going to be really important. Having 2 ruthless middle forwards from rugby league, that's going to be important. Maiahu Moana, Harata Butler. And of course, Leishon Albert Jones is really good as well. That's a foundation element for hope and faith and optimism about the Warriors in NRLW. But there's another player, Emily Curtin. She is an Aussie half. So basically every Warriors team right now has an Aussie half in it. Because I think Emily Curtin is going to be the starting halfback for the Warriors. She is she spent time with the Eels and the Tigers. She's got a couple game-winning drop goals. At least one of them was to win a championship, like the under-19s or something like that. I think it was actually to win the New South Wales Women's Premiership a few years ago. So she's got that game-winning halfbacky stuff sorted. She's also a Muay Thai fighter. And she loves to defend. She loves to tackle. So you can say, oh, the Warriors, they signed Michaela Brake. Oh, the Warriors, they signed Patricia Maliepo. Oh, the Warriors, they've signed these Kiwi ferns. They also have an Aussie half who does Muay Thai and loves to whack people in defense and kicks game-winning field goals. To me, that smells like a recipe for a cult hero at Mount Smart, but also in Hamilton, because the Warriors women will be playing 3 games in the Waikato, which is especially funky considering how many players from the Waikato they actually have. Maiahu Moana, Harata Butler, Capri Paikau, 3 of those leaders from Waikato. So Emily Curtin, she's not getting a lot of buzz. She's not getting the headlines, but I think she is going to be the starting halfback for the Warriors in NRLW, and I expect her to kick some field goals and maybe kick some players friendly ways, because we don't want to getting a red card and suspended. But she does Muay Thai. She's got a bunch of different fight highlights you can check out as well. She seems like she is destined for cult hero status at the Warriors.
Yeah, skilled Aussie half who kicks field goals and smashes people. In my head, as you're describing that, I'm thinking, like, what if you cross Luke Metcalf and Marata Niokore or something like that? You know, if that's not a recipe for cult hero status, then I don't know what is.
The one player I didn't mention for the NRLW, this is why it was annoying, because I forgot about Sarah Sen Oliver. She is a center with the Bulldogs, and she was, like many of these players, she was actually recruited initially by the Bulldogs. She is a Petone rugby junior who joined the Bulldogs. She's been playing reserve grade or women's premiership in New South Wales for the Bulldogs. She's going to be awesome as well. Righto, let me throw out some Warriors stuff here. 3 stats where the Warriors have improved each year during the 2 Andes era. Completion rate, 79%, 82%, 83%. Penalties conceded per game, 5.55, 5.12, 4.92. Dummy half runs per game, 6.4, 7.16, 9.61. So the Warriors, their completion rate has gone up with each season under Andrew Webster. Their penalties conceded has gone down with each season, and their dummy half running has gone up each season.
But their wins went up and then down and then up again, which is why some of that is interesting to think about. Like, because it felt at times last year that they, in dipping from the year before, they were maybe a bit too safe in how they were playing, particularly on attacks. Like, so completion rates going up, maybe they're not taking enough risks, maybe they're not throwing enough offloads or whatever. But they've gotten way better this year, and the completion rate has still gone up. So it's interesting how these things like reflect off each other, because it's one thing to have if you have a high completion rate and you're losing games, that looks bad because you're losing games, regardless of the fact that it sounds like a good stat. But if you're doing that and winning games, it sounds like an incredible stat, and it's definitely been a clear way of how the Warriors have won a lot of games, is they just generally complete their sets better than their opponents, which is not even just in getting to the kick, it's what they do with the kick and stuff as well. And then the defensive set off the back of that and linking that all together. And that's just one of the 3 stats you highlighted there. Like, I mean, the dummy half runs, for example, and the way they just like are able to get through their sets, not just they're not making mistakes with the meters that they gain through that and all that. It's that paints a picture of a very efficient team, you know?
Well, they are a very efficient team because they are currently tied for the fewest penalties conceded in the NRL, and they have the best completion rate. That is basically rugby league perfection, but of course, there's far better teams in the NRL than the Warriors. What you're saying there about the journey of these 3 seasons. So if we if we start with dummy half running, there's a small jump from 6.4 to 7.1. Then there is a bigger jump to 9.6. So they kind of go from adding 1 dummy half run per game to adding 2 more dummy half runs. Support runners. Now, we don't get lost in the nitty gritty here. Let's just flow with the general vibe. Support runners goes 43.22 per game, 43.83 per game, then up to 46.61. The most important thing here, I think, as far as learning about how the Warriors play rugby league, is the decoy runners. Decoy runners goes 49.66 per game, 58.91 per game, 50.3 per game. So the season where the Warriors were bad under Andrew Webster, they had a significant jump in decoys. Now, when you combine that, so you're going this year to last year, or last year to this year, whichever way you want to go. A big jump in dummy half runs and a big drop in decoy runs. This is, I think, a really important element of NRL footy. Last year, a lot of going sideways. A lot of shifting the ball to the cul-de-sac in the sideline. Respect to Sean Johnson, that was my main frustration last season, was Sean Johnson just shifting the ball to the sideline. This season, it's far more direct. You can go Wade Egan, dummy half running, 51 meters per game, 49 meters per game, 70 meters per game. So Wade Egan's added 20 meters per game from the first 2 seasons under coach Andrew Webster. Take out some decoys, add in a few support runners, because if you're playing direct, you need your support runners. And I think the Warriors this season, they're playing far more direct. It's far more up the guts. Chance Nickel-Klokstad averaging a career high 208 meters per game. More than he had in the Raiders during his excellent mahi there. He went from 188, 202, 208 during the 2 Andes era. Most of those runs are coming close to the ruck. Then you add in the speed of Aaron Clark and all the other elements that the Warriors have, all the other elements at the Warriors this season. And I think there's been a clear change in style, faster, more direct, and that opens up the space elsewhere. 2 players who I think are benefiting from that style of play are the halves. And we've talked about this before, the tries and try assists, right? One of the halves is leading them in try assists, the other half is leading them in tries. I'm going to take this further, and I can't be bothered to see how this stacks up against other NRL halves combinations. But with my Aotearoa goggles on, I don't know if there's any other halves combination that has this. Both halves scoring at least 5 tries. Both halves with at least 5 try assists. Both halves with 200 or more kicking meters per game. Both halves tackling with 88% efficiency or more. Both halves averaging, we'll say, 60 plus meters per game. So we're expanding on that try assist balance. And I'm saying they're both doing 200 plus kicking meters per game. They're both pretty good tacklers, 88% or higher. And they're both running the ball for at least 60 meters per game. Most NRL teams, they're going to have one bad defender in the halves. They're going to have one half who loves to run the footy. The other half loves to kick the footy. The Warriors just have 2 halves doing lots of stuff. And I think that's another key factor in their success so far this season. Something, I don't know how to describe them. They're just like thoughts in my head. I was going to say the whakapapa of passing, but I can't be bothered going too far into history. So I can't say who was the passing forward for the Warriors in 2005, but I can say during the 2 Andes era, there is a passing genealogy. which goes Tohu Harris, Dylan Walker, Aaron Clark. And based on my hype from recent weeks, I think you go Aaron Clark, Demetric Vaimonga. But there is a clear genealogy of passes in that forward pack. Tohu Harris, Dylan Walker, Aaron Clark. Maybe Demetric Vaimonga. Then there's the main versatile players in the team right now. Kurt Capewell, Adam Pompey, Marata Niokore, Leka Halasima. Capewell, easy mahi there. We all know what's happening there. Adam Pompey's playing wing centre pretty easily. And whenever there's a drama with the outside backs, it's Pompey who plugs that hole. And when I did my youngster report for the Warriors, I did say that Adam Pompey's just straight up more reliable than Ali Leotau and Rocco Berry. And so you could say he's better. Because he's always available. He plays centre and wing equally as well as each other. Whereas Rocco Berry and Ali Leotau, they're basically just centres right now. And they're basically not playing right now. Because they're always injured. Marata Niokore plays edge and middle. Leka Halasima plays right edge, left edge, centre, middle forward. So it's not just one player who has versatility in this Warriors team. There's 4 players right there who can play 2 positions at a pretty high level. And I haven't even said anything about Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who is the guy who started all of this in my head because he plays fullback, centre, wing at an 8 out of 10 level. The one player, so like there's a clear trio in the passing. Tohu Harris, Dylan Walker, Aaron Clark. And then I'm curious about the Demetric Vaimonga. Versatility, we've got a clear quartet. Capewell, Pompey, Niokore, Halasima. Then I'm curious about Jacob Laban. Because Jacob Laban, his best way to getting a bench role this season, in the second half of the season, will be if he can play middle forward. But I actually can't, now I'm thinking about it, it's the versatility of Capewell, Niokore, and Halasima that then allows Laban to just settle as an edge forward. So I'm curious about how that looks for Laban. Is he just going to be used as an edge forward? And maybe he starts and allows Halasima to come off the bench? Or is he just going to be on the bench and give Niokore or Halasima a rest? Is Laban going to be on the bench playing middle forward and edge forward to allow Halasima to stay at edge forward? But the passing and versatility is clearly a fundamental of Andrew Webster's teams. And then it's about how do these players fit into that style, that system.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what to add to that. That's a nice summation of how yeah, I guess the ability to be both the efficient team that we've talked about the Warriors being so far this season, just like the from the overall perspective, but then to within that have players shifting between roles and maintaining that efficiency as a team is first of all like the proof that those players are able to do that. It's the success that guys like, you know, Capewell playing in the centers and whatever have been able to maintain when guys are out injured. They're like the team is able to continue doing what they would do with their top 17 without, you know, when certain players are missing because other players are capable of just like slide across, not just do your job, but do their job instead, and someone else can do your job if that's how it works out. And yeah, they've it's like the same thing as the stat things. When you're doing all that and you continue to win games, that's when you start to take notice of these things a little bit more so because something is clearly working.
And you're the best reserve grade team in New South Wales.
That helps too.
Yeah.
And both of those teams seem to be just winning a lot in Australia as well. It's not just like home record that's doing the trick. Their away record is as good as their home record, I think, for both of them, as long as you count Vegas as not away but
Well,
neutral,
that's where it gets a bit tricky, just saying the away record from the ladder.
Yeah.
Because the Warriors, I think they were the home team for Magic Round.
Yeah, right.
And then there was a Magic Round in New South Wales Cup as well, where the Warriors were the home team, I believe. So that's where and then you're like, you've got one game in Las Vegas. So it needs to be an in Australia record, and that requires a bit more work to map that out. I can't do
the same troubles with the A-League trying to especially the Phoenix, who seems to like, it didn't matter with Auckland FC because they just won or at least didn't lose wherever they played, home or away, but until the last one. But Wellington Phoenix seem to have a massive disparity between home and away records, and then they also have their version of Magic Round, which gets in the way. And or the Phoenix used to play games in Auckland now and then. Which actually, they had a really good record when they played in Auckland, until they had to play in Auckland against Auckland. That changed things.
Final Warriors thing. Is Taintua Piki a better winger than Dylan Watanese-Lesniak? I'll let that simmer. Because I did some work a few weeks ago, like average run meters and all like post-contact meters, tackle breaks. It was the advantage to our Piki. And that's crazy. And that's where I just throw it out. Is Taintua Piki a better winger right now than Dylan Watanese-Lesniak? Because I have been a bit underwhelmed by Watanese-Lesniak in his return to NRL. Tuivasa-Sheck, he's doing 20 runs for 200 meters. He's crazy. So you've got him and Shans Nickel-Klokstad, and then you've got Dylan Watanese-Lesniak going for like 10 runs, 70 meters. I was like, well, Taintua Piki was doing more than that. You know, what are you up to? Righto. Nice little dump there of some rugby league information. Let's go a little bit of football, and I just want to quickly touch on Wellington Phoenix women's signings, because they have signed 2 imports. We have Lucia Leon and Ellie Walker. Tell us a bit about these 2 signings for the Wellington Phoenix as they rebuild their roster. No coach yet. Drone Lady hasn't been, she still doesn't have the job, so she's still the Drone Lady, but they do have some signings of overseas players.
Yeah, Drone Lady's still the Drone Lady, but she kind of does have the job, and even if she doesn't officially, because I think we've still got another, it might be a month, I think it's July when the 12-month suspension ends, and then they can actually sign. Like, that's the holdup. That's why they have to wait, is because she's literally suspended for being a Drone Lady at the moment.
Yeah, so the Drone Lady will remain a Drone Lady because she was the Drone Lady. And
yes, she's still serving her Drone Lady time, so she has to remain under the Drone Lady title until that changes. But her wife is the director of women's football at the club, so I think this, even if she wasn't going to be the coach, she'd probably still have an input in how some of this, some of these off-season things are being done. This is fascinating though. There's the 2 signings that they've announced bright and early in the off-season, because up until this point they only really had academy players under contract, plus locals who have been like, Alyssa Wynnum is still under contract for another year. She's not an academy player, but she's been with the team since the start. So it's sort of like the homegrown brigade, all very young. I think Lara Wall was the only player aged over 22 or 23 of the 9 players, I think it was, who were under contract. But now they've added 2 imports, and not just 2 imports, but 2 fairly experienced imports. roll through the names again because I've these are new
Lucia
players to me.
Leon and Ellie
That's it.
Walker.
Yeah, Lucia Leona had trouble finding some stats for because she's got that she's Dominican, but she bought like and actually captains the Dominican Republic national team. But she was born and raised in Spain and then also a bit in England. She actually played for Tottenham Hotspur for quite a while, came through their academy, didn't play a lot for the first team, but when she did play for the first team, that was at the same time that Rhea Percival was there. So there's a Kiwi crossover from that. But a lot of her stats are under a different name because it's like a Lucia Leon Perez or whatever it is, you know. She actually played for Western Sydney Wanderers last year. And she actually scored 2 goals against the Phoenix in a win at Porirua Park. So she's already one of the leading goal scorers from last season at that venue compared to the team that she's just joined. In fact, if you get rid of the players who are not currently under contract, she might have been last season's top scorer of the players contracted for next season at Porirua Park. So it's one of those signings where it feels like you just signed a player who did really well against you. Like you got the best possible version of that. But she's a pretty experienced player. Like I said, she captains a national team. She's played a dozen or so times in the Women's Super League. And she is a speedy, wide defender who can play probably more as a wingback ideally, which is not how the Phoenix played last year. So that might be a glimpse of something different. Or she's just going to be asked to be right-sided defender one way or another, but someone who can get forward and whip the ball into the box, maybe overlap with a bit of pace, beat a defender, perhaps a little bit of possibility of that. But as much as anything, it sounds like they've got a defensive player here who can create some attack, which gives them variety, which gives them different options of how they're going to create things because they didn't have a lot of that last season. They needed more of these kind of options of different players who could stretch the field and just not relying on Annalie Longo to do kind of everything with a little bit of Alyssa Wyndham for help. It's just not. That wasn't doing the trick. They needed more attacking variety, and here's someone who might give them that. Ellie Walker is very much a centre back. She will come in there that got that American physicality. She's tall. She's good in the air, which is something they lacked last year. They had a pretty good defensive team, but they didn't necessarily have like players to win those big commanding headers, which works in both ways because that also becomes an attacking weapon if you can get good set piece delivery, which the Phoenix have always had good set piece delivery. What they haven't had, except for the times when Marissa Vandermeer was fit and available, which don't know what's happening there as she continues her recovery. But having someone who can win a header on an attacking set piece as well is massive. And that was a big avenue for how they scored goals 2 seasons ago when they were quite good. That perhaps we're going to see them restoring that. So 2 good experienced players who are defensive minded, but will also help them in attack.
We hit the end of the All Whites New Zealand under-20s week, basically. And of course, the All Whites did lose to Ukraine since our last podcast. Was there another result for the New Zealand under-20s?
No, their last game was on Sunday, so they had already finished by that point. They lost both games against Chile, 3-1 and 2-1.
So that's 4 games, 1 win, 3 losses, and yet it's pretty positive. Like I'm feeling good about the state of All Whites football, the All Whites development pipeline, and I'm curious to to ask you, but also try and help you and to come out with some sort of theme or trend that is clear in the All Whites pipeline. And the reason I ask this is because we'll get into the cricket in a jiffy as we finish our podcast. And the New Zealand A women's squad that is going to start their tour of England very soon, the batters score quickly. Whether it's Jess Watkin as a senior batter or a young batter on the rise like Emma McLeod, someone who commanded White Ferns selection like Bella James, all the batters in this New Zealand A squad score runs quickly. They score runs all around the park. They hit boundaries. It's fun. The seamers, Molly Penfold, Bree Illing, Amy Hucker, they're all athletic seamers who don't necessarily rely on the typical slow in-swing style of bowling. Those are two themes that I've spotted in how the White Ferns are selecting players for their pipeline. Is there something similar, but not necessarily a selection thing, but just something that you've noticed having watched two All Whites games and observed, because it was a closed door situation with the under-20s? Is there some sort of connective tissue between the New Zealand under-20s and the All Whites that you have seen, observed, or learned about in recent weeks? Or is there some sort of stylistic trait that is present in both teams?
I can think of a couple of things that do spring to mind between like aspects of the development team that reflects or are mirrored in the All Whites and vice versa, because that's how mirrors work. You know, they reflect both ways. Well, sort of, but anyway, there is definitely a goalkeeping point. Not just the quality of goalkeeping in the age grades and also in the All Whites itself, but also the depth of goalkeeping, because we're in the middle of this little like Alex Paulson versus Max Crocombe duel with the All Whites. Nick Sana's hanging around. Ollie Sale's been hanging around. Kay Sims deserves a chance at some point. There's a fair bit of depth there. And then even just in this under-20s team, you got Henry Gray, who's like, on the books at Ipswich Town, is having a very good start to his professional career so far. But he was excellent in the game that one of the two games was broadcast in the Chile series. One was behind closed doors, one wasn't, which makes you wonder what was the point. But anyway, Henry Gray was awesome in that second game, but like Albie Kelly-Hill is also in this, well, would be in the squad if he weren't currently injured. So he's an option. Joe Wallace, who was the keeper who played the first game, he is playing academy team football at West Bromwich Albion. Used to play a little bit for Auckland City back when he was an under-20s player for them. So there's good quality goalkeeping, and there's also good depth of goalkeeping with competition for places in both of those teams. That's one position where I don't think you'd say that about the Football Ferns, for example, but there are a couple of these other ones definitely do apply to that. One is one I spoke about when we talked about the under-20s last time. I can't remember if that was after the first game or it might have been when the squad was announced, or it might have actually been on I think it was actually on the Thursday, the subscriber podcast. So that was the idea that suddenly we seem to have not one, but like several creative wide players or attacking midfielder types or wingers or whatever, like who have a bit of pace, who have a bit of skill, who have a bit of creativity, who have a willingness to do things that are a little bit freaky, like maybe let's throw that step over in and run at this dude when I don't necessarily have to. Let's try something, let's take a risk, roll the dice. Luke Brooks-Smith is a guy who fits in that bag. Gabriel Stone Rodriguez is a guy who fits in that bag. People who have watched the Wellington Phoenix are well aware of those two prospects. But Stipe Jukic also is in that category. Troy Putt, I thought, was the best of them in the game that I was able to watch against Chile. He was really good. He's ex-Birkenhead fella who's currently in the academy team at Minnesota United. So looking to follow on in Michael Boxall's footsteps in a very different way to how Michael Boxall plays. But that swings into the other one, the third and final one that I'd say, which is the traditional one that you do expect from Kiwi footballing teams. But I think there's an argument to say, certainly with the Football Ferns, but I think even with the All Whites too, arguably, that they maybe went away from this a little bit more, which is just like powerful centre backs. And I get why that was maybe out of vogue for a little while. It's like we want to be able to pass out from the back. We want to be able to play more possession football. We don't want these big lumpy dudes and ladies hanging around in centre back and just like there to be blockers. But the thing that you see now is like Finn Surman is that. Finn Surman is like 1.9 meters tall or something like that. He's huge. He wins heaps of headers. And he's silky with his feet. He's not like he's nothing crazy there, but he's certainly it's not a weakness of his game or anything. He can control the ball, he can pass the ball, he doesn't panic under pressure. Tyler Bindon is the same height as Finn Sermon and is amazing with his feet. Like he scored an overhead kick last season for Reading. Like he's incredible with that stuff. That's genuinely one of the best aspects of his game is how good he is with his feet. Yet he's also a tall, strong centre back who wins challenges on the ground and in the air. This under-20s team, which Tyler Bindon is eligible for, I don't think he'll play, but he's eligible for it. He's the only one in the All Whites scene who could technically go and play at the Under-20 World Cup later this year. But Luca Coveney, son of Vaughan, like Vaughan Coveney used to be the All Whites record goal scorer until Chris Wood overtook his record. But Luca Coveney, as a tall, strong, silky centre back, fits into that same mold like a Tyler Bindon-esque player, not to the same extreme, but you know he's of the same mold, as I say. Noah Dupont, I think he's a little bit younger, but I would put him in that too. He's a tall, strong centre back, currently in the West Bromwich Albion system, along with goalkeeper Joe Wallace. And James Bulkley, who's a little less of a ball player, but he's a bit more like a Nando Pinecker, like a really solid, also, again, very tall, very good in the air. Not as good with his feet as those other guys, but has a killer long ball, just like Nando Pinecker has a killer long ball, can hit that sort of like 50-meter pass out to his winger running over the top or whatever. So that's definitely something. Yeah, the depth and quality of goalkeepers, the resurgence of powerful centre backs, powerful centre backs who can also still play with the ball at their feet, and then suddenly being able to develop a few creative wingers and players who can play in between the lines and you know getting into pockets or running in behind, like we've seen a big they're all in different ways, but the All Whites have Sarpreet Singh, Callum McCall, Elijah Just, Matt Garbutt, etc., Ben Old, etc., etc. Like a bunch of players who those guys I mentioned there are all like 21 to 26 age range. They all do it in different ways, but they are all creative players of a type and of a caliber that we haven't really had a lot of in the past, and suddenly we have this whole bunch of them, and that is still being reflected in the age grade teams as well coming through.
I think it's a similar idea that is evident in that New Zealand A women's squad, and they are preparing to start their tour of England next Monday. Is the first one-dayer against England A. I've said it before, like the attacking batters and the athletic seamers, I think is something like I'm especially interested in Bree Illing. I think she is going to play a lot more cricket for the White Ferns over the next 12 months than many people may believe. I think she is just as tall, fast, bouncy, athletic as Molly Penfold, and she's a lefty. So I think that's going to be very useful for the White Ferns bowling attack moving forward. And I'm also, another little pocket that I'm going to be tracking closely is that spin bowling all-rounder zone, because they have Jess Watkin, they have Nancy Patel, they have Flora Devonshire and Anna Browning, all of whom they won't bat in the top five, like Jess Watkin might, but they're not going to be consistent top five batters for New Zealand A, but all of them can bat top five for their respective domestic teams, and they all bowl a bit of spin. Browning, Patel, Watkin are all offies, right arm off spin. Flora Devonshire, lefty batter, lefty finger spinner, lefty offie, if that's such a thing. And the Devonshire Browning duo I'm especially intrigued by. Two of the most talented youngsters on the rise in Aotearoa, and I think they are going to contribute very well to this team. Obviously, we've seen Emma McLeod, Izzy Sharp, Polly Ingalls, and Bella James come into the White Ferns. I think, similar to Bree Illing, I think Bella James and Polly Ingalls are going to be very important players for the White Ferns over the next year. Same with Bree Illing. I think all three could be first 11 White Ferns pretty consistently. I think Polly Ingles is already the best wicketkeeper for the White Ferns. We know her funky shots around the park, but Bella James, I'd say Bella James and Brie Elling are probably the two most undercover White Ferns players right now. James has found a new attacking impetus. She has, like, she was one of, like, she didn't score a lot of runs against Australia last summer, but she did flash her attacking ability. And when she scores runs, she scores them very quickly, opening batter. So you can go her and Susie Bates. You can go her and in this New Zealand A team, you might have her and Jess Watkin. Bella James and Georgia Plimmer is a fantastic opening batting duo as well. And I think Bella James is going to play a lot of first 11 cricket. I think Polly Ingles has already established herself as the best wicketkeeper who can score runs quickly down the order. And I think Brie Illing is going to play a lot of first 11 cricket as well, considering she is a lefty seamer who bowls pretty fast. 2 more cricket points. We have news that Dean Foxcroft will return to Central Districts. He was named in CD's squad for the Global Super League. And
is that like a Club World Cup thing, or
it actually is. I have to keep an eye on some of these T20 leagues, like Major League Cricket, like Banana Ball. And I will be fascinated to see how CD perform at the Global Super League. Mainly with regards to the youngsters, we got Curtis Heafy, Will Clark, and Toby Finlay are in the squad. We know Curtis Heafy, fantastic opening batter, who in the Super Smash last summer played a significant role in CD winning the championship because of how many different roles he played and how he was able to do the job. Will Clark is another undercover rising talent in Aotearoa. All-rounder, very strong hitter, good seam bowler. And then Toby Finlay is just a tall, athletic seamer who I don't think he actually made his Plunket Shield debut last season. He did that a couple seasons ago, but he did make his Super Smash debut last summer as well. So fantastic development opportunity for those 3. But it did confirm the news that Dean Foxcroft will be returning to CD. Started with CD, went down to Otago. He was captain of Otago for a few summers, gave that up, and now he returns to CD. It's probably a good move for him because he's done it, so whatever. Like, I can't see any negatives for Foxcroft moving back to CD. It is a funky situation for Otago. Otago do not have a women's coach officially right now. They do not have a men's coach officially right now. And arguably one of their best players has moved back to CD. So it's a really weird situation for Otago, but I do love the talent that Otago have. Foxcroft gave up the captaincy. Luke Georgeson takes over as captain and does a tremendous job last summer. Like he just looks like a leader, as well as being a very good batter and a very good bowler. And Otago, like I said, it's that old situation where they have a lot of players from outside Otago, Foxcroft, Dale Phillips, Thorne Parks, Jamal Todd, Georgeson moved down from Wellington. But they also have really good local juniors as well. Max Chu, Lou Johnson, Ben Lockrose, Jacob Cumming, Zach Cumming, Mason Clark, Thomas O'Connor. And then you go to their veterans who are going to be key players. Leo Carter, Matt Bacon, Andrew Hazeldine. Carter and Hazeldine moved down from Canterbury. Matt Bacon moved down from CD, but they've been in Otago for 2, maybe 1 season for Carter. All of that is coming before domestic contracts are announced. So I don't know how their squads will look because domestic contracts actually offer us insight, unlike Blackcaps contracts. as far as player movement goes. I can see how folks in Otago might be down in the dumps about Foxcroft leaving, but I think they, like, player personnel wise, they got a good squad. There's a lot, like the local juniors, Johnson, Lockrose are both young. They've got two Cumming brothers. Mason Clark made his debut at 17 years old. Thomas O'Connor is a lefty seamer who debuted last season. A lot of good cricketers coming out of Otago, so they should be all right. The weirdest thing for Otago is that they don't have coaches. Nofke was their coach last summer, but as I said earlier in the show, he's picked up a job with Pakistan. Craig Cumming did a fantastic job as Otago's Sparks coach, and now he's working in England. I think the Otago Sparks culture is bigger than the coach, so I don't really, like, the coach just needs to fit in. I think it's player-driven there. Their HBJ Shield dynasty, I think that's player-driven. So I think the Otago Sparks will be okay, where Otago Volts, it will be a bit more interesting to see what happens with their coach. Let's finish with a bit of Blackcaps T20 stuff, because we do have the T20 leagues happening, and also we've got a T20 World Cup on the radar. When I get a nice big sample size, the things I'm going to be looking for are the top order hitters. Why don't I have Kane Williamson in my T20 World Cup squad? Well, we got Rachin Ravindra, Finn Allen, Tim Seifert, Devon Conway, Daryl Mitchell, Glenn Phillips. That's 6 dudes kind of competing for 4 to 5 spots in the batting unit. So, like, I don't really see how Williamson's going to fit in if he's knocking around at 115 strike rate. But then you go, okay, so how do we get, like, who's going to be selected there? Because in that top order slots, you've got Ravindra, Conway, Finn Allen, Tim Seifert. That's basically 4 dudes competing for 2 spots. So that's a very interesting little situation there, and I may have missed someone, but I don't think I have. Then the seam bowlers, Kiwi cricket fans and international cricket fans curious about New Zealand, you got to prepare yourself. You got to prepare yourself that Kane Williamson will have minimal involvement moving forward. He might play some test cricket. You got to prepare yourself, like, you should already know Trent Bolt's not playing again. You got to prepare yourself. Lockie Ferguson, probably not going to play again. Adam Milne's pretty damn good. He's not playing again. Why am I so confident in saying that? Because right now, we have Matt Henry, Jacob Duffy, Zach Fox, Will O'Rourke, and Ben Sears. The only bloke there with a T20 international bowling average over 25 is Will O'Rourke. The only bloke there with the T20 bowling average, technically, Jacob Duffy is 25.3, but the only dude there with a bowling average over 25 is Will O'Rourke. And I haven't updated these stats. All these stats are from the Monday newsletter. I haven't updated them from any overnight action. Matt Henry in the Blast, 8 wickets at 23. Duffy in the Blast, 7 wickets at an average of 25. Zach Fox in the Blast, 6 wickets, average 25. Will O'Rourke in the Blast, averaging 42 with 6 wickets, but he's trending in the right direction. Ben Sears hasn't taken a wicket in the MLC, 4 overs, 12.2 RPO. But Ben Sears has a T20 international bowling average of 23, T20 bowling average of 21. Ben Sears is really good, but is he as good as Zach Fox? Technically, Zach Fox and Ben Sears aren't actually as good at T20 international bowling as Jacob Duffy. And then we've got Matt Henry, who's averaging 23 in internationals and T20s. Like all these dudes, it's not my opinion. Like this is statistically factual. They are good T20 bowlers. But I think there's a perception issue here. Man, Henry, he's a test bowler. You know, he's just a bang a length in ODIs. Well, he's kind of actually awesome in all formats. That's why I think Matt Henry is going to be a legendary seamer if he isn't already. Folks and Duffy, fantastic in T20s over the past year. The worst bowler here is Will O'Rourke. He's the dude who bowls 145, smashes hands, and has the most awkward movement and bounce of nearly any seamer in the world. So I think those 5 dudes are going to lead the way as far as Blackcaps seam bowling goes ahead of the T20 World Cup. And when you add in, how do we fit, who wins the selection battle between Finn Allen, Rachin Ravindra, Devon Conway, Tim Seifert, Daryl Mitchell, and Glenn Phillips? There's some funky stuff happening here as far as the Blackcaps T20 mixer goes, and I pretty proud of myself for my generosity to Devon Conway there.
Well, he's hanging on, you know, he's hanging in there. Yeah, that's a bowling lineup that is gonna there's no holes in that bowling lineup, you know, and they complement each other pretty well. They a couple of them have gotten smashed lately, but
that's not a lineup.
But you're building your lineup out of those guys. You're not picking all 5, but you're
like if we're going because you still need you got Michael Bracewell, you got Mitchell Santner, you got a bit of spin, bit of slugging there as well.
And the 2 most experienced international bowlers that you've mentioned there, and other than the ones that are not in contention, are probably, you know, Henry and Santner, who both of those 2, like at the same time as there's a bunch of guys sub 25 years old stepping into international cricket and looking pretty bloody good there, you've got a couple of guys who were a little bit over 30 and who've been around playing all formats for a fairly long time, had spells in and out of some of the, like Matt Henry didn't play a T20 for a long time. Mitchell Santner's been in and out of the test team. Both of those 2, at the same time as all this other stuff is happening, like those 2 seem to have taken massive leaps forward as well. Like Matt Henry's just become absolutely incredible, and Mitchell Santner is now probably our #1 test spinner again. Like there was a time when that was the case before, and the whole time everyone was sort of sitting back and saying, yeah, but look at how bad that average is. You know, does he actually take wickets? He can slow things down, but is that what you need in red ball cricket? Never any doubt about him as a one-day or T20 bowler. But now he's taken a bunch of wickets in test stuff as well. It feels like he spins the ball a little bit more than he used to. He's certainly more experienced and played in a bunch of different places since then for different teams around the world, and seems to have you know, upskilled in a few areas. But he's been incredible over the last 12 months, and Matt Henry's been beyond incredible over the last 24 months, maybe even a little bit longer at this point. So you got 2 of your senior bowlers making massive improvements, you know, deep into their careers at the same time as you've got a bunch of exciting youngsters as well. So, I mean, at some point, maybe they have that same, you know, jump up themselves. And I mean, you can argue Jacob Duffy actually should be in that category rather than the other category, because he is older than O'Rourke or Sayers or Fox. But bottom line, all that stuff is just very exciting for, I mean, the last point to say about how exciting that is we're talking about this in a T20 context, but that could be your test bowling lineup as well. That could be your ODI bowling lineup as well. Like you can fit all formats from those lot.
And it's a weekly occurrence, but the mystery man is Bevan Jacobs, who by the time the T20 World Cup comes around, he could be in a first 11 position. He's that good at cricket. How many games of official cricket worthy enough of getting onto your Cricket Info profile has Bevan Jacobs played since the end of the summer? the end of the New Zealand domestic cricket summer.
Well, he went to the IPL. I doubt he played there. I mean, it might be zero. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's playing Major League Cricket and he's got 2 in or something. I don't know, but I'm tempted to guess zero.
It's zero. So he's still the mystery man.
Yeah.
It's like, it's funny when you think back to all the hype about him signing the IPL contract. And this dude hasn't played a T20 game since the end of the Super Smash. So it's a bit weird, but I still think he's going to be in the mix. Because when you think about the young talent in Aotearoa, don't know if there's a better T20 batter than Bevan Jacobs. Which is saying a lot. Muhammad Abbas, Matt Boyle. Like, all these dudes are really good. Mitch Hay in the wicketkeeper conversation with Tim Seifert. And Devon Conway. But Devon Conway, I saw a bit of MLC, Devon Conway wicketkeeping. He dropped the ball. But I still think Bevan Jacobs is going to be a factor. A far bigger factor sooner than people think. And that is based on the fact that he is currently the mystery man. Like, he's not doing anything. Out of sight, out of mind. And that is our Niche Case podcast for this week. Big up yourself. We appreciate your eyeballs and eardrums. Enjoy the sunshine around Aotearoa and make sure you are, like, don't worry about staying safe. Just worry about having a smile on your dial, making sure you're sharing that positive energy with each other, and do your best. Big up yourself, love yourself, kia kaha, stay beautiful, church.